Well, we've all heard the old saying that Rome didn't fall in a day, but here's why that story is fabricated throughout the years and why it still matters today. And so, in the year 476 AD, in the month of September, the barbarian commander, um, I'm not sure if I'm saying this name right, but so I'm going to spell it out. Odoacer. That was the guy back then. He forced the teenage Western Roman Emperor Romulus Augustus to resign from office. The const the const the Constantinopian Palatine chronicler Marcellinus comes would write in the year 510 that when the guy um, I'm going to say Odoacer, who's the king of the Goths, took control of Rome, and the Western Empire of the Roman people had perished. But no one thought this at the time. The fall of Rome in 476 is a historical turning point that was invented nearly 50 years after it happened as a pretext for a devastating war. The fact that it has since become recognized as the end of an epic shows how history can be misused to justify the otherwise unpalatable actions in the present, and how that misuse can also distort the lessons from future generations take from the past. Although everyone, from school children to scholars, they now learn that the Western Roman Empire fell in 476, which was the 5th century. Romans did not see anything particularly special about Oda Acer's coup. Nine different Western Roman emperors had risen and fallen since 455, and most of them had been overthrown by barbarian commanders like Oda Acer. In 4 cases, the barbarian generals toppled the one emperor and delayed appointing another. One of these imperial vacancies had stretched for 20 months, a span longer than the entire reigns of more than 20 previous Roman emperors. Even Romulus Augustus himself was a usurper who assumed the imperial office after an imperfectly executed coup that left Julius Nepos, the legitimate emperor Romulus, replaced. But still in charge of Western Roman imperial territories in what is now Croatia. In other words, while the West had lost an imperial usurper in 476, it still had a legitimate Roman emperor. Oda Acer had maintained most of the structures of the Roman government during the nearly 17 years that he had controlled that area. The Senate continued to meet in Rome just as it had for nearly a millennium. Latin remained the language of administration, but Roman law governed the land. Roman armies continued to fight and win victories on the frontier, and Roman emperors had appeared on the coins that Oda Acer had minted. These coins showed that Julius Nepos at first, and then after Nepos' death in 480, they featured the bust of the Eastern Roman emperors who had reigned in Constantinople. These aspects of Roman life continued after the Gothic ruler Theodoric had overthrew Oda Acer in 493. Theodoric had proved even more successful than Oda Acer in reviving the Italian fortunes after the political chaos of the middle part of the 5th century. His armies had campaigned successfully in modern Croatia, Serbia, and France. He made much of Spain into a protectorate for a time. Large-scale repairs were made to churches and public buildings throughout Italy. Either Theodoric or Oda Acer had undertook renovations to the Colosseum, following which senators proudly inscribed their names and offices on their seats. Rather than imagining that Roman rule had ended in 476, Italians in the late 5th and early 6th century had spoke about its recovery. Bishop Anodius of Pavia had spoke of the filth that Theodoric washed away from the greater part of Italy, leaving Rome as it emerged from the ashes living again. But Theodoric's military victories meant that the Roman Empire has returned to its former boundary, and returned the culture of our ancestors to Romans who had lived in the regions that he had reconquered. Anodius even went so far as to claim that the revival of Roman renown had brought Theodoric forward as a revival to Alexander the Great, because he had sparked a Roman Golden Age. But how did it happen that Oda Acer's coup, the beginning of this Roman resurgence, instead came to be seen as the fall of Rome? The answer lies not in Italy, but in Constantinople. As an Italian power returned under Oda Acer and Theodoric, relations with the Eastern Roman Empire and Constantinople had deteriorated. By the time of Theoderic's death in 526, Romans in Constantinople had begun considering the possibility of invading Italy. It is at this particular moment of the East-West tension that we can return to the name Marcellinus comes. Marcellinus's chronicle appeared in the late 510s and presents the first historical work that was known to claim that Rome fell in 476. But Marcellinus's text also gives away why he said this. Marcellinus describes Odoacer as the king of the Goths when he calls the Roman Empire to perish. This is a fabrication. Odoacer was not a Goth. Theodoric, however, was a Gothic king, and he had taken power from Odoacer. As the Gothic-led Western Roman state found itself in increasing tension with Constantinople, the fall of Rome emerged as a way to justify an Eastern Romanian invasion that would restore Italy to Eastern Roman control. Marcellinus did not invent this idea in a vacuum. He served in Constantinople as an aide to the future Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian, who was at the time the imperial heir apparent. Marcellinus later received several honorific titles from Justinian following the publication of his chronicle, a work that bluntly hammers home its main theme that the Western Empire had fallen and Justinian's Eastern Roman Empire should restore it. This propaganda worked for a little bit. In 535, Eastern Roman armies had attacked Italy. Justinian explained this aggression by claiming that the Goths had used force to overtake Italy, which was ours, and had refused to give it back. His troops entered the city of Rome in December of 536, but on this particular day, Justinian's official historian Procopius wrote, Rome became subject to the Romans again after a time of 60 years. This number 60 was not arbitrarily chosen, but the capture of Rome by the East came 60 years and 3 months after Odoacer's coup of 476. Despite these initial successes, Justinian's army struggled to consolidate control over the peninsula. The Italian War did not conclude until 562, and the fighting devastated both the city of Rome and much of Italy. Goths recaptured Rome in 546, but they lost it in 547, retook it in 549, and then lost the city for good in 552. Residents of Rome survived by eating weeds, mice, and eating shit during a long Gothic siege in 546. It is estimated that Rome's population fell from perhaps 500,000 people in the mid-5th century to little as 25,000 in the 560s. Other Italian cities have suffered even worse fates than that. Milan, once Italy's second largest city, was razed to the ground in 539 with the entire population either killed or enslaved. The Eastern Roman Empire had recovered Italy and destroyed much of it in the process. The Western Roman Empire had clearly fallen by the 560s, but Italy was controlled by Justinian. Many of its cities were ruined and much of its infrastructure was severely damaged. But when later historians looked over the monument when the Western Empire fell, they found Marcellinus and his claim that Rome fell under Odoacer. But in the memorable framing by the historian Brian Croke, the fall of Rome in 476 is a manufactured historical turning point that has become an accepted historical fact. But it was Justinian's invasion, not Odoacer's coup, that decimated Italy and ended the Western Roman state. For 1,500 years we have picked the wrong time and blamed the wrong person for the fall of Rome. But this fucking mistake matters for two reasons. First, Marcellinus' manufactured fall of Rome helped create conditions that permitted Justinian to launch a war that killed hundreds of thousands of people and destroyed the prosperity that Roman rule had once created in the West. His words had real, deadly, and long-lasting consequences. But second, the manufactured fall of Rome reveals the unstable boundaries between historical epochs. For 1,500 years, Odoacer's coup has included a cautionary tale about how barbarian commanders in the Roman army ended Rome's empire. But people around the world have scrutinized this story so that their societies may avoid suffering Rome's fate. But if we recognize that Rome did not fall in 476, the lessons we take from Roman history become quite different. But Rome's story then does not warn us of the danger of the barbarous outsiders toppling a society from within. It instead shows how a false claim that a nation has perished can help cause the very problems that its author invented. We ignore this danger at our own peril. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RVW King, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when the new video comes out. And thanks for listening.